myself with you know, trying to come with solutions and answers when I don't even have them or no one has them. So one day at a time. And yes, I've also been fortunate to work. So just going into lockdown, I was approached by different brands to do fun activities with content around lockdown. So that helped me to move the attention away from myself or the worrying, the fear, because obviously all of us, there was that whole anxiety. My place in Maboneng, excuse me. My place in Maboneng closed, obviously. There's a few places in the area that have opened for deliveries. I didn't opt for that because I don't think personally it makes business sense because of all the variables. So we opened only this week actually, and I'm going to use it the same way I've used the space in the past, minus the events. So, you know, as my working space.
And Mogau, in your case,
at a time,
using social media, I mean, with all of you, I know it's been part of your brands, but I'm curious to know, Mogau, how has this changed for you? If at all?
I think that now has been an interesting, for lack of a better word, an interesting time, especially for brands. As we got into lockdown, there's a lot that specifically brands couldn't do anymore, whether or not they had the budget. There was no way you could put together a production to say, shoot a TV ad or a radio ad or anything like that, but they still had to, you know, speak to the consumer somehow. And I think that that's the gap that influencers / you know, content creators, whatever you call them, that's the gap that we can now fill. So it's been interesting to get requests from brands that wouldn't have ordinarily wanted to speak to me, and it's not necessarily only brands in food, but it's other brands or companies that wouldn't have otherwise thought of food as a medium to talk to their consumer, are now realizing that it's such an easy win. It's like low-hanging fruit. Food is the one language that everybody gets. And now that we're all sitting at home, we've got, like you said, a captive audience. People want content. They want to keep their mind off of everything that's happening. And most importantly, they want to not only learn a new skill, like come out of this lockdown having learned something new, but how do you effectively spend time with your family when you guys have all of these interests that are so different? But the one thing that you have in common is food. So I think that is the one message that came out so loudly for me, that a language that we all understand really is food. Just the people that I've connected with, the collaborations that I've been able to set up everywhere in the world has been because the one thing that we have in common has been food.
Okay, so on this note, I want to ask if the ladies from Whycook are here just to show yourself, because on my screen people have moved to the second screen. We all need to be a little compassionate with Zoom. I think I see you, and I'm going to try to unmute you. Can I ask you to unmute yourself?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, so for everyone joining us, because I'm doing all the admin, so sorry I'm reaching over you all the time, it may look that way. I am just letting more people in, just to let you know we are discussing creativity, unleashing creativity during a pandemic. We're looking at the opportunities and the challenges faced by some of our members of the industry. And I'm letting some people in. Again, as I said, if you could just mute yourself if you're not a participant. And I would just quickly like the ladies to introduce themselves and tell us where you're based and what you do.
So I'm Yolanda.
And I'm Tabi.
We have a kitchen in Bryanston. It's our catering kitchen. And we also have our cooking studio in the same premises as well. We are a catering business that has now moved into also the cooking classes as well.
Okay, great. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the discussion. Thank you for agreeing and volunteering some very interesting points as well earlier. So we have looked at, you know, the influence of social media to an extent, the influence of social media during this pandemic, how certain brands have activated a lot more. I'm actually quite curious about that. Have you seen that certain brands have been directionless in this time and coming to you and requesting, what can we do? How are we going to move forward? Or more of them trying to get into a space that they didn't get to before and relying on you to give them strategies? I'm not sure if any one of you would like to answer that. Perhaps Nti?
I mean, most brands that have approached me have come with a clear idea. So I think when we went to COVID, I found my experience is most brands they took a step back to go and realign and, you know, reposition and re-strategize. And everyone has just been focused on make sure that they keep the engagement and keep brand. You know, how I see it is they just want to keep their brands of mind, and just trying to make sure that seen as part of people that are helping to make things easy. So you'd be asked to, you know, I'd be asked to put out how I'm coping during the time, and, you know, my advice, just on a human level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so most brands have had, you know, clear plans and, you know,
Right.
strategies around this. That's been my experience. And yes,
Okay.
there's been a huge increase in brands that are reaching out, and most of them are brands that were not necessarily in the food space. I've also identified a niche with corporate.
Okay.
For me, and I've been doing quite a bit of that. So with obviously everyone working from home, there's been morale and, you know, caused by the distance. So there's back on team building, virtual team building activities, and as Mogau says, you know, we all agree with the fact that food is the one thing that pulls us together. So I'm finding a lot of requests for virtual team building sessions with Prates. And that's something, I mean, I wouldn't do necessarily, like cooking classes, and it's an area that I wasn't focused on. And during lockdown, I've been doing quite a bit of that.
Okay. So, you know, I think is there anyone else who would like to speak to that about brands maybe flailing a little bit? And I bring that out because I have, you know, friends in the industry who manage brands and who are doing more work now more work now, but actually ending up with zero product, in quelling the fears, in trying to bring these brands up to speed by what, you know, with what needs to be done. They feel that many of them are just sort of like casting the net out without knowing what they're doing. These are obviously not the brands that you are necessarily working with, but have you seen any of that or experienced any of that just general confusion? Maybe not with the brands you're working with, but when you see other content out there and you think, this needed a lot more thought.
Whycook, yeah. So for us, basically, because we're not really a lot in the influencer space, but we're more on the corporate side of things and a lot of eventing and stuff. So people are still trying to figure out how do they then do this virtual events, how do you still keep people interacted and so forth. So they would still ask us to think about how then do we get people in tuned, how do we then cater, how do we do 1, 2, 3, you know? So it's been, not everybody knows exactly what's going on yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been quite also for us, because it's different brands all the time, different event planners that come through as well, and you need to always think on your foot, adapt to change, because a lot of other corporates are saying that their people are not willing to adapt. The suppliers are not really adapting to the change and thinking out of the box and using different mechanisms, you know? So yeah, that's been like the kind of gist we've had.
Yeah, so I suppose the same kind of empathy that we wish to be applied to us in this time as we're navigating is what we need to have and apply towards brands and the people in the industry that you work with. I'm quite interested about this idea of community. I mean, that's quite a theme that SA POC is interested in and has set out as one of our, founding in our mission statement, that we're really about this community and watching it grow. I'm interested in knowing it. You know, we can't meet you for a book signing anymore. We can't be in your kitchen and you're not cooking for us right now. So did you find that this time has perhaps improved the sense of community because we're all forced to be a little more compassionate, a little more aware with both the audience and fellow members in the industry? Or are you finding it, quite challenging in that respect? Maybe you would like to offer some insight into this, Mpho?
Cool. Like as I had mentioned, the one thing that saved me during this time, I think mentally, was starting a soup kitchen. So it was easy for me to pull resources because we're kind of like a community here at Victoria Yards. You know, there's quite a lot of tenants and there's some activity around that's happening with the community. So it helped me just kind of shift my mental also. And Nti was mentioning where it's not about you only, so I think in this time I've also found it like so blessed because I've managed to work with people in the community who I never thought I would reach out to, and just also getting to see people's just different gifts and I guess like tools that they can bring in. So that's kind of helped me and just shifted my approach in my business. And when I did start my deliveries, my home deliveries, which I do only on Sundays, it was easy then again to pull from that same network for me, and the two are able to kind of like coexist, and which, yeah, it's just given a different meaning for me.
Mogau, you had actually brought up this point, the discussion point previously. Would you like to weigh in here on this idea of the sense of community now? Oh, sorry, you're on mute. And while Mogau is unmuting, I just want to say welcome to everyone else who is joining us. We're looking at the subject of creativity, unleashing creativity during a pandemic. And I'm just going to ask you, if you are not a panelist, to please put yourself on mute. And we welcome you to set your video setting on if you are comfortable with that. We'd love to see who you are. Yes, Mogau, you were saying.
Yes, so I was saying that my personal experience has been that I've felt a deeper sense of community in this time. Like Mpho said, there are people that I've been able to reach out to, who have reached out to me that we maybe wouldn't have ordinarily, but because number one, we have all this time, and there's just quite a lot of time of reflection. So it's been easy to reach out to multiple people who I maybe wouldn't have worked with before, that I'm currently not only working with, but planning to work with. I think another mind shift has been that, yes, things are what they are right now, but they're not going to be like this forever. So we don't have to stop planning for the future. There is still a future. So one day, maybe this year, maybe next year, this is going to end. And so it doesn't mean that all of our plans have to necessarily die. So I'm finding I'm collaborating a lot more, whether be it on social media where everybody can see, or behind the scenes where we're still just planning all of these amazing things that we still to do when all of this ends, because this will end.
Well, thank you for that positivity, Mogau. Also, we're just on this note, on a similar note, sure, social media does offer you a platform in which you are all entertainers. So all of you who are using it, I don't want to be the one who quantifies the number of people you need to have following you in order to be an influencer. And I know that term is quite controversial. It's loved or it's loathed, but you've used the platform and the different social media platforms as a platform to entertain. But what I have observed a lot more recently is it's become a platform for education. So I don't know if it's because people have more time on their hands, or they're around more, or they're leaning on sources of comfort, people that they admire and they look up to. So now you have an opportunity for education. So, whether it is unpacking a cut of meat or teaching chopping skills or really showing how to cook a recipe, not in that TikTok style necessarily, but, actually doing the recipe from start to finish. I'm seeing, a lot more of that. And I'm interested in your views on this. Michal, maybe you could start with that.
I think that it's because people are a lot more empathetic now. We all sort of in the same boat, not really, but we all sort of dealing with the pandemic in whatever way that we're dealing with it. And so people are a lot more open. So where, say, content creators existed as entertainment, now people want a lot more because they're actually plugged in. You actually have people's attention now, and it has to be more than just entertainment.
And Zanele, could you also add a little bit about your personal experience working with both sides?
I will also agree with how we have, I was saying the other time, we actually even learning to like our spaces now that we are just stuck in one places. People have a lot of time in their hands, so they tend to find themselves I was still saying we'll find so many chefs after this because a lot of people will find their passion actually that this is what I like doing. So I'm thinking that we've got a lot of time now to find ourselves, and I will say let's use this time wisely. Actually busy with my second book. I'm starting to shoot in 2 weeks' time. So I will say this is new to everyone. Let us use it wisely, as much as it's frustrating, but let's try to be positive while we're home, because really we're not really stuck at home, but more we are safe at home than going out there and getting sick and all.
So, looking at this now a little bit from the other side, we're speaking about the things that you've been doing in a positive aspect with regard to social media. And I'm not saying you've done anything negative in social media, but what I'd like to know is, has there been anything in particular that has hindered or challenged your progress of, where you saw yourself in January now? I mean, have you seen anything with regard to any of the platforms that you're using that has made life, just that little more difficult for you?
Should I take that?
Yes, Nti?
Okay.
I mean, just outside else that we're experiencing as a result of the pandemic, I'd like to think that when media as a tool, because of the collapse of I find that most corporate are starting to now take social media platforms as communication tools. And in the past, influencers and social media, it wasn't taken as serious. So I think it's become easier. I find that it has become validated. I find that, in boardrooms when they're strategizing now, people are now understanding, how saying you get people that you wouldn't have interacted with in the past approaching you because value, and people see value in reaching their audiences using micro influencers, if you like, I don't mind with influence. Validated. So our space has been, you don't have to now negotiate and make people understand the importance of taking your brand out and going aggressive on social media. So it's difficult. I find that people are not told on with social distancing. Social media has made it easy for us to connect with loved ones, to connect with, you know, the world. So just in general, I feel like it's been a shift. People have stopped, recognized, and starting to see value in the platforms and value in what we're doing. And now speaking to the educational element, again, because our platforms are no longer as important. So people are more now putting thought into the content that they're putting out because they are aware of the number of increases. Yeah, so I see things shifting to the positive. This is taking away everything else that we are experiencing as a collective as a result of the pandemic. But as a tool, I see everything shifting to the positive.
Okay, great. I would just like to welcome the people who have just joined us, where we are exploring unleashing creativity during a pandemic. If we could just ask you to put your microphones on mute. Thank you so much. Okay, so, you know, while you're creating and you are all projecting this very positive attitude, there are some grave concerns in the hospitality and restaurant industry in general, which we are all aware of, and some of you may or may not be working in those particular spaces. I would love to know, what are you most concerned about? The Whycook ladies, maybe you would like to start.
Sure. I think our whole business, especially with the studio, because we literally launched our studio in February, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you can imagine having to plow so much money into a space that is for social gatherings, and now it is completely dead. So now it's about, what are we going to utilize this space for now? You know what I mean? So we built it out of with no sort of any funding or anything. So we self-funded it. So we are sitting with a large amount of investment just sitting, you know? So we literally now in communication trying to figure out how to use the space. But also, I think what's interesting is that now the little bit of space that, the little bit of time that we've had in the space during COVID has brought in brands to come and shoot for their content, you know? So that's been interesting, whereas the space was purely for bringing in people, having a social good time. Now it's actually a space where brands can come and use it for their own content, which is great. Another thing we're most concerned about is catering is also about having a lot of staff. So you can imagine how much staff is affected by this. You know, Tapi and I are literally cooking now. We had stopped cooking because we had staff. So now we are back to basics. If you can actually see where we are right now, we're in the middle of an order and this Zoom thing. So this is why I keep jumping in and out of the screen. So yeah, staff, that's very important, you know. It's very heartbreaking. Another change, what else could have been?
I think also like delivery modes, because we've been doing like the home meals and etc. So a lot of people, when we arrived, they're like, no, we expected like a driver to deliver, and we're like, no, because we just feel like the less contact our kitchen, our staff, our people have with other people, it's so much better for our clients, you know, just to make sure that our clients' health and safety comes first with that regard. Because if I'm putting food in someone else's car, vehicle, I don't know where they've been, how many other people they've seen. Are they applying to the regulations? Are they not? It's something that we don't know, you know? So that's why we try and keep it by all means, it be us that deliver, you know, and also only come in like once or twice a week so that we don't have that many orders. We're not seeing people on a daily basis, interacting with people all the time, up until, you know, pandemic settles a bit and there's like a way forward and like clear communication in terms of our industry and what we can do and what we can't do going forward. So just the health of our clients and our staff has been like a really like high key for us.
Another concern for the last point for me would be the anxiety of finding the perfect idea to survive. You don't have the luxury of doing all sorts of ideas because all those ideas need money, you know? So it's really the anxiety of trying to figure out what's really a good idea and how much of a jackpot can that idea be, you know? Because we don't have a lot of cash flow coming through to dabble in this, dabble in that, and then kind of figuring out there, okay, this is the winner. We kind of need to make it work firsthand, you know? And obviously still being more attractive, you know, out there. Yeah, that's a big concern.
So I understand that. You know, while people are saying this is a good time in which to reflect and to brainstorm, but taking it into a testing phase requires capital. And if there are no feet and there's no, you know, no money to pay your overheads, no money to you know, pay salaries for your employees, and this is part of a discussion that we had in the first Zoom where we were looking at the future of dining in and dining out, so covering both chefs and caterers, and private home chefs. So restaurants, caterers, private home chefs under COVID, during this period and after, what was going to happen. And this was one of the things that was discussed. I want to just ask you, you mentioned that brands are coming to shoot in your space. Is this something, maybe it will be useful for others to hear, is this something that they approached you about, or did you go out and say, we have this space, does anyone know of any brands who are looking to utilize it?
For the brands that we have done work for during COVID, they approached us actually. So from that, we've now at least created a portfolio that we can now use to go pitch. So, and I mean, as I said earlier, this was not what we had planned. We had planned that we are just going to be having a great time. And so now we had no portfolio to be pitching to brands, but like luckily, because they approached us, you know, we were able to get business from there, but we definitely need to pitch. I think also we are so used to our followers that we have, that we feel like it's the message, you know, has gone quite far regarding our studio. And we realize every day that actually not a lot of people know about this space. But we thought having 16,000 followers, the word would get around, but it doesn't go around that quickly, to be honest, for some funny odd reason. So there's definitely more pitching that needs to be done, definitely.
Okay, and Mpho, Mpho, some of the immediate concerns that you have.
Finances, obviously. It's a reality. I mean, you know, just opening up your emails almost every day and there's pretty much nothing but spam, you know. You're kind of used to either people asking for a quote for this or that, or, you know, some sort of work, collaborative work, etc. So that's not happening. Then I think the mental health, just being mentally fit to kind of brave whatever the storm is right now that we're going through, and you know, what we go past. It's important, I think, for me, just to not be extremely anxious, because I think it just doesn't allow me to even do any thinking, you know. It's you almost kind of stuck in this place. And I mean, I don't have a business partner, you know, and I kind of work on my own, and I kind of need to wear so many different hats in my business. So yeah, I think that for me is one of the biggest things that I've had to like just be gentle enough for me to like, you know, feel what I feel, but also just alleviate my anxiety in some way or another, because I need to still, you know, be open enough to do work and find ways of generating an income. And then the other thing, when I started doing the home deliveries, the home deliveries were propelled off the base of my business existing. And, you know, obviously it was an easy entry because people knew Food I Love You by now, at least the people that I reached out to first. So it was easy for them to say, oh yes, definitely we vouch for that food. We're definitely going to have that food at home. But then comes in the factor of the logistics now, because you're not just, before you're either going to deliver and set up at a client, etc., or people are coming to your space. But now you have to work out the logistics of delivering the food and making sure that either the food is warm and it's in the right condition. There's more packaging that comes into play, etc. And that has been, yeah, I think if anything, it's been difficult. It's just added in another layer. And I think it's just been another thing of like, you need to actually just toughen up a bit, you know what I mean? Take it for what it is, be willing to also hear the feedback and, you know, keep trying, because right now you don't really have a lot of, as morbid as it sounds, really options, you know. I think there are a lot of things that we are obviously not seeing, and they will come in their own ways. But if right now I know that, you know, the home deliveries is what I'm doing and they need to work, I need to also be very open to listen to what, you know, how to tweak it, etc., along the way, so that I can have as good enough of a product as what people are used to when they come into my space, etc. Because I think those two, it's like almost like we're running a whole new business, and I'm sure the Whycook ladies could also attest to that, because it's got its own, you know, set of things basically play. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, that is... No, please
just
continue.
to budge in there, lucky for us, when we actually started the business, we started the business with the home delivery.
Oh, nice.
And so when we started, it was like, I think we were feeling what you're feeling. It was the most frustrating thing. Like, you have so many people giving you different opinions about, no, how about you do healthy food? How about you do home? Like, it's just like, oh my gosh, like, how can I satisfy so many people, you know? But what we've learned doing it, because we did it and we actually parked the child. We never like really, the child never like really left us, you know? But it's for us to, as a brand, find what it is that you want to do, you know? Because I mean, there's brands out there that just do healthy food, you know? And there's really no problem in Food I Love You saying, guys, I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you know? Because at the end of the day, it becomes so confusing for you. It becomes so, it becomes a lot, you know, because it's different packaging for different things. It's trying to satisfy so many palates, you know, and with everyday catering, you can do that. Today it's like lamb chops, and then tomorrow something else, and you have a dessert and you have that. But unfortunately, with the home delivery, it's like, it is what it is that you get, you know.
And
so
on the note of home deliveries, because it's been mentioned before, I have been, it's been mentioned by people who are doing it. I have also been ordering as many as I can, you know, trying to support local, some of the local restaurants and caterers. But one of the things you notice is the amount of the thought process that needs to go into this. So whether you were delivering before, after, you know that your client is not going to receive the same quality of meal if you did it in their homes, or if they came into your space, or if you were cooking in a cooking class and eating it hot immediately afterwards. So I can imagine the level of anxiety and the kind of packaging, the keeping the sources separate, because, you know, you need to just, there's so many people doing it now. So if you're doing it for $3.50 or $4.95 for 2, you need to justify the cost, because the market has just become quite sad. Everyone's trying to survive. And so there's that element of creativity involved as well. I want to just invite, so as we are rounding up now with the last 15, we obviously would like to invite people who are listening in to share, to participate. And if you could start typing in some more questions in the chat, or when we open it up, you can also, you know, voice your questions directly to some of our panelists. But moving on, you know, So we are creatively rethinking the old, whether we like it or not, as we embrace this new normal. And, you know, it's been brought to my attention that a lot of you may have to be exploring options that you didn't consider before. Mpho, you mentioned the idea of maybe sharing costs, sharing employees, merging overheads somehow. And I was wondering if any of you had anything to add to that. Now, can you see something like that working? I mean, we don't have the luxury of the old model anymore. Mogau? Okay, we just have to unmute you, please.
Yeah, this is also like overwhelming, actually, to be honest. And just to what Mpho said, a big part of all of this is also, as people trying to come up with solutions, is also taking care of our mental health. I'm just reflecting over the past couple of days, being online, you know, having to do work online and be online with everything that's been happening, and just how triggering it all was. I know a lot of it is happening in America, but for Black people everywhere, these are the same struggles we have. So yeah, it's just been very triggering. I know I'm going like off the tangent of what you asked. But yeah, I'll still say it's really collaboration for me is how we will all survive during this time. Whether it's, like you said, either merging costs that you guys can bundle and sort of do together, or coming up with like brand new products that you wouldn't have ordinarily, and just do them together because you both come in with different capabilities, and just understanding that you don't necessarily have to be in each other's businesses. You don't actually have to like formalize and be business partners to collaborate. Myself and Zanele do it all the time, where we collaborate on certain projects, and we don't even have to, it doesn't even have to be like out in the open that this is actually a project that we're doing together, but we get to benefit from each other's strengths.
Okay, on that note, I would like, Zanele, I would love you to add something there, and welcome back, Nti. Nice to see you again. You said you can't hear us, or you've got no audio? You can't hear. Oh, okay. That is, sorry about that. But in the meantime, Zanele, could you unmute and just perhaps add, because we have noticed that you and Mogau do work a lot together. You did work a lot together pre-COVID. You know, this idea of collaboration, what does it mean to you, and how do you see it going forward?
I'll say, just to add on what Mogau just said, working together doesn't really mean you are trying to collaborate to be permanent, but like she said, that you're getting a strength from each other. It helps to show people as well. It's another way of showing people that we're doing the same thing, but we can still work together. We're doing exactly the same. We give cooking classes, we both have books, we do influencing for the brands, and we can still work together without any conflicts. So I think it also helps like to show upcoming chefs that we can also they can also look up to us. And again, there are a few things that you see happening that people are trying to get into our spaces. And sometimes I feel that maybe chefs people don't respect our craft, because anyone who can chop onion and cook, they think we are also chefs. People don't see the importance of going to school and learn for this and make a living out of it. So we're trying to show people that we out there being a chef, we went to school for this, but we're still making it fun. We're still making it together just to draw the strength from each other.
Okay, well, I'm very excited to see what the collaboration possibilities are going to be. going forward as you navigate this landscape together, I mean, and with the support of this greater community. Of course, I would love to encourage more of the people who belong to SA POC at the table to either reach out to you, to watch what you're doing, to try and have a conversation. My experience has been that you've always been chatting to your communities on the chat function there, be it Instagram or otherwise, giving advice and encouraging people. So if you're out there, you're a cook, and you're also wondering, or perhaps you haven't graduated yet and your graduation is pending, because that's the case for a lot of culinary students. What lies ahead? Lean on the community and watch what they're doing. Speak to them as well. Before we get to some of the questions that have come through, isn't T here, or has she fallen out because of the audio issue? And T, if you are here, say hi. I would have loved your input on this as well. She said that her phone was heating up, so she switched on to the iPad. The laptop. Lastly, we're looking at the future. Okay, so none of you are oracles. Nobody is. You can't see into your crystal balls and tell us what's going to happen, because I'll pay you if you could. But in terms of looking at the future, would you like to just give us some closing statements there about how you see things going forward and what you are going to keep looking at in terms of inspiration? Who would like to start? Just very briefly. Mpho?
Cool. I think if you really take any cue from, what's been happening right now, I think we really, really, really need to be more observant, and just empathetic. And I think that helps to kind of guide and, show you the way forward. And I think for me, during this time, I had to really go back and say to myself, what does my business stand for, and what do I want people always to have as a takeout after experiencing food I love and I think that has helped me just to kind of stay focused also in terms of how I then put the business out. And I think that there is no other way, like just if you did the fundamentals and the groundwork well enough, and you laid the foundation well enough, I think that can always guide you in terms of how you then adapt yourself with any sort of changes. Because when I sat down, I was like, how do I always I want people to feel? And I think that's guided me during this time, really. And I'm going to use that, I think, going into the future. I can't really say much about just opportunities, etc., or different things that I'm going to try out. But I think I need to be very open, and how I want the business to run is also very important. And I think we've been also very fortunate, given a chance to kind of recraft that over this period, because some of us are working tirelessly and it's just unending hours. So for us to pull back a bit and just say, how do you want to craft your business is very important for the future. So,
okay. So as we look at the last few minutes we have, because we would love to give the other people who are listening an opportunity to address one of their questions. And T, if we have you here and if you could unmute, could you just very briefly let us know, welcome back, if you could just let us know, looking at the future, what do you see, and what are you going to keep looking at in terms of a source of inspiration?
Looking at the future, to be honest, I'm very hopeful, especially for our space, because I see food becoming the main topic. It's moved to the center stage when it comes to entertainment. As we've seen globally, mainstream entertainment has been paused, if you like. So food entertainment, I feel like there will be a lot of exciting things coming out in the future. So I'm very hopeful, and it's on us. So I think what's important is just for us to stay positive and stay inspired. How was saying, there's conversations happening behind the scene, reach out even to spaces where naturally it wasn't something that would be done for collaborations with food in those spaces. But I think it's time that, you know, we reach out, because right now food is the one thing that actually keeps people connected. Entertainment value comes out of food. I feel like there'll be a few shows coming out. But I'm very hopeful. I'm hopeful, and I'm grateful that personally I chose food when I did, because with the direction the world is going, you know, everything else has literally made food, you know, the main thing.
Okay, and finally, I would have loved every one of you to offer and your ideas on the future and what inspires you. But if we could have one just closing comment from you about this idea of what the future looks like, who would like to?
So,
oh.
Okay, I will say the
30 seconds.
Is very there's a lot of love, I think, that's going on now, you know. And one of the things I was saying to Tapi the other day is, for catering, it's a numbers game. So having to cook for 6 people is really not that exciting for us, as opposed to 100 or 200 people, right? So the future for us, I think it's just also just realizing how food is so personal and interacting more with our clients, and also just realizing that it's picky pickies and you'll get there, you know, just picky.
That's the one step at a time.
Yeah.
And you used to always tell us that when we were in high school, before finishing high school, one step at a time. And we were like, no, we're going to leap off this mountain. Well, look at us now. Zanele, do you have something to end us off on?
I will say the future is bright. The food is a lifestyle lately. Hang in there, guys. We'll get over this and we'll still make it. So Good luck, all the best, and yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to pivot over to the chat now, see what people have said. I just want to also reiterate that it's not the idea, it's really a concept of mental health and attending to that, taking care of that. I think it was Mpho who brought it up earlier. It's not easy for us to cover all of these aspects in depth when we are discussing or dissecting a topic like this. But next week, we are going to be looking at the topic of self-care, positivity, and mental health next Wednesday. So if this appeals to you, if you're struggling in any way, if you know others in the industry who are, I welcome you to invite them to participate or listen in on that conversation. It's not possible, of course, with 6 or 7 panelists for us to give much depth to any particular conversation, but I want to thank you all for coming in and sharing your opinions, your experiences, and your time with us. Thank you also to Mogau for suggesting everyone on this panel, and we appreciate your time. I'm going to quickly look now at our chat, and one of the things, so Kelvin, who is in Polenzo, he's a farmer formerly from Soweto. He's based in Polenzo at the university in Italy. He says, could it also be that a lot of people have access to resources, cell phones and immediate internet, the fact that there's a lot of content that we don't directly have to pay for, which I find it's important this for immobilizing in education. So I see that comment, and correct me if I'm wrong, Calvin, is as making content that is not always accessible to people, accessible, because now they are able to watch what you're doing via cell phone. They are able to garner these, for example, knife cutting skills via the cell phone. Okay. Then Lemmy says, with regards to collaboration, did Mogau approach Zanele? Was it the other way around? How did that go?
We want to know.
Yes, who's going to tell us?
I think it happened organically, like any partnership, be it business, be it like personal relationships, it just happens organically. You keep seeing this person's work and you like it, and vice versa. And I honestly don't remember. I don't remember who approached who, but it happened organically.
Okay. I'm not sure if Zanele is still here, and she's going to tell us. Actually, Mogau was begging me for the longest time. I'm just kidding. Okay, so the next comment from Ingrid Jones. How does the rise of the home cook impact everyone on the screen?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, cool. I think it's awesome. You know, people need to find their space and, you know, just like start cooking a little bit more. I think we can have more conversations around food and, you know, the future of food, etc. So I don't think, I mean, if the question, if I'm reading it right, maybe if it's a bit of a threat, etc. We need more people in the industry. The industry is big enough. There's still so much of the pie, you know, to be shared. And I think especially also when it comes to females and food, because I'm quite passionate about that. Like, I mean, you know, the very first meal you've ever had mainly comes from your mother. And when you look into the industry, it's not enough. There's not enough representation of women in the kitchen. You know, you're finding a lot of head chefs in restaurants, etc., are male. So we need to see more of that. So I say yay. we need more people cooking. We need more food conversations happening.
I agree with Mpho. It also
Okay.
says people are interested in our space, you know. So people are keen, people are interested, people are cooking. So that's an engaged audience. So I like it. I agree with Mpho.
Okay,
Yeah.
so Ingrid clarifies, Mpho. She says, no, it's not, she didn't mean it as, it's a threat. It's because people now have time to pay attention to food and to eating better. And I think with what Mogau, Zanele, and Nti do directly with their brands, you want home cooks because you're, I mean, you're out there empowering them and saying, this is, you can all be Lazy Makotis. Right?
Yeah.
That's exactly what I do, actually.
Okay, there is a comment that I think that would need a lot of time and doesn't quite fit the ambit of this discussion. It says, how do you attract brands and how do you prize them for collaborations from cooking with the perfect touch? But it's a good question. I just think it falls outside the ambit of this particular discussion, and maybe it's something that we can have in a marketing focused conversation. And on that note, is there anybody here who would like to contribute by way of a comment or anything you'd like to add in our last closing moment? You can raise your hand or just add it to the chat. Okay, on that, I think you all our wonderful panelists have managed to answer every question to satisfaction. So I would like to thank you all for your time, and we hope you all have a wonderful day. And we look forward to welcoming you next week on our Zoom series of chats with SA POC at the table. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.